All right, hello everybody. How's it going? Welcome to the stream. I'm Ian. I'm a senior developer advocate here at Postman, and I got a bunch of coworkers here with me today. We got Jan and Saswat hanging out with us today. Hello to everybody coming in on LinkedIn. We've got folks coming in already. We're going to be streaming over to YouTube and Twitch as well. So hope everybody's having a fantastic day wherever you are in the world. So let's do some quick introductions. I've been at Postman now for about a year. Love all kinds of open source. I got all the new fancy lights hung back up on the wall over here. But we're not going to be controlling my lights today. We're gonna go over to Jan next and get an introduction, and we'll show you what we're gonna get into today. It's gonna be a pretty nerdy one for sure. Sterling hanging out on YouTube as well. Sterling's also got some great lights in their setup. Let's go over to Jan. Jan, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey Ian, thank you for inviting me. Good to be here, really. I'm Jan. I'm based in Germany. I run Postman's open source program office. Just recently joined Postman a bit over a year ago, and now have the honor to do open source operations and care for everything open source. So whenever you have stuff like that, feel free to reach out to me as well. But today I'm here in my official role as Chief Tinkering Officer, or whatever that means.
That's great.
So yeah, I'll be contributing some LED lights to the show.
And Jan has engineered this whole light panel himself, so it'll be pretty fun to dive in on some of that. And last but not least, Saswat. So I've had both of these folks on live stream in the past. We've done IoT stuff with Jan in the past. We had Saswat on when we were doing a how we built it with Postman Flows, and I couldn't not invite Saswat back. We had such a great chat before. Saswat, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
Good morning, Ian. Yeah, hi, folks. I'm Saswat. I have been in Postman for almost 5 years now. And very recently, we started working on the Flows project, and I was the lead for it. And I have been engineering-wise leading this Flows project till now. And I'm super excited to show you guys what we have for you in Flows, the new release of Flows, and go through making a really interesting project with Ian and Jan and see where it goes. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining today. I'm excited to chat with both of you and get in some really interesting engineering stuff today. Before we go too far, though, we like to start all of this with, in case you missed it, and boy, we got a doozy this week. So Postman 10.10 just dropped. So it's started to roll out to folks, and we have added a ton of stuff in here. And so I want to go through a couple of highlights. We're going to spend a couple of minutes on this because there is a lot that came out in this release. Probably the number one favorite, at least for Arlemy, I see Arlemy hanging out in chat, was the customizable keyboard shortcuts. And so now you're going to be able to customize the keyboard hotkeys and so on that you use within the Postman product. It will be stored within your local storage. So if you're on the desktop app, it's going to be stored within your desktop app. If you switch over to the browser, you're going to have to set them again. And each browser that you log into, because it's not going to be tied to your account, it's going to be tied to that local environment for now. Next up, we had a lot of requests about using the Postman examples, and is there a way to better organize those? Oh, actually, before I do that, I can't skip this one. We're adding more support for server-side events happening, and so if you use streamable APIs like gRPC and WebSocket, we're adding more debugging and testing for the server-side events. And so you can see that as well. And then we've got the saved examples of HTTP requests. So if you, like me, if you like to really have your collections really well organized, instead of making a GET request and then an example and then a GET request and plus another example where you're just changing out some of the parameters and some of the headers and things like that, now you can set one GET request and you can have multiple examples, and you can now send those examples. You'll be able to try out those examples. And so if you want to customize, here's an example with these parameters, here's an example with these parameters, and maybe this header, here's an example with this kind of body instead, you'll be able to send those examples over instead of just the main GET request as well. We've added even more to the gRPC APIs as far as like testing and documentation and so on. There's just it goes on and on and on. And then another fun one down here, if you're using C#, we will now generate some code, some client code snippets in C# using HTTP client. If you were on the live stream last week, you saw me working with Sam from Microsoft, and we were doing some C# and .NET. And then the other big one that dropped is you can now use JSON Web Tokens for auth. And so all of this started rolling out in 10.10. Hide the message bar, sure. So all of this dropped in 10.10. It started to roll out, so some of these features will gradually roll out. If you're on the desktop agent, these will roll out right away. You should be able to see this whole changelog from up top. I think if you go into the gear icon, you'll be able to go into release notes. And then from the release notes, then you'll get to see all the fun stuff that came out in that release. Cool. So it was kind of a lot, but yeah, Arlemy is super excited about the customized keyboard shortcuts for sure. So that's in case you missed it. So we added a lot in the product this week, and so you'll be able to check out that roadmap on a regular basis now. Cool. Well, welcome from everybody from around the world. We saw all kinds of folks dropping by, and so on. As we shared our script, so thank you for the reminder to close the chat window when we're sharing our screen. We'll be sure to do that because we're going to be sharing a lot of different screens today. So we're going to start with Jan's screen. And what we're going to do is we're going to have Jan talk a little bit about an LED matrix that Jan engineered, put all together themselves, and how he kind of built out an API. We're going to show some Postman interaction, and as far as like how you can kind of customize this LED panel. If you remember Jan from a live stream from not quite a year ago, it was last summer, I believe, like July or August or so last year, I think, Jan. You'll remember this light panel, yeah, you've been building some other neat IoT lights and so on as well. So cool. So Jan, why don't we kick it over to you, and
thank you.
You can show us what you built.
I think it must have been June or July because I was on vacation full of August. So
Oh, okay, that's right. That's right.
no way for that. Before we share the internals, like the request I do for the panel, let me switch my camera and show you what the panel actually looks like.
Okay.
Let me switch that camera over to this one. And what you see now is I call an LED mural, like a wall art or something. It's not that big. It's about, where is it in centimeters? Maybe 40 centimeters in width and 20 in height. Oh, a bit more in height. So it's 14 lines and 28 LEDs in each line.
Okay.
It's mounted to some aluminum rails or whatever it is, and connected inline. So you could address each of these LEDs individually. And what you see on that right side is like the test colors and, well, the beautiful, not very detailed Postman logo. So yeah, it's connected to a Raspberry Pi that's mounted to the back together with an DC adapter because, well, that thing needs quite some power.
Oh, yeah.
You know that Ian, the background of your of that actual view is probably also consuming, I don't know what, 20-25 watts or so. Nothing. Oh, sorry, that's my cat passing by.
Yep, cat making an entrance there too. Yeah, no worries on cats. My dog will probably make an appearance at some point.
So yeah, I turned down the brightness as well, so it doesn't like burn the camera. It can go pretty bright, to be honest. It will lighten all of the room. So yeah, that's like the optics.
How long did it take you to sort of engineer and plan out and like, figure out the addressable point of each one of these pixels? Because you got 14 by 28. That's a lot of pixels.
It is.
How did you map all that into the Raspberry Pi?
So the actual engineering, like planning the hardware, was the easier part. The soldering took quite some time because I had to drill holes, cabling, and solder them all together. And I'm not the best at soldering, so I had to do some of the connections 2 or 3 times. And then for the controlling of the LED strip, there's a few libraries that you can choose from. It's not that difficult. Then the actual mapping, and now we can head over to my screen sharing if you want, Ian.
Sure.
The actual mapping is not too difficult. It took some fiddling, but I could pack it into some scripts. I did that in Python, so on Node-RED, on the Raspberry Pi, because that was the easiest way to set me up with an API. And the request over here, I'll be assigning the body of the request dynamically through the pre-request script. And here I can define, for now, this is like what I made the backend to process is 8 colors. And then this is the actual matrix. So you can see here like that check mark and would assume that this is like a positive feedback, but there's more of it. I did some templates in here for positive and negative outputs on that screen. And let's see if we can, where do we put the variables? Give me a second. Yeah, okay, here's that sentiment, which is now empty. And if I actually run that request, let's see what happens to a LED installation.
So keep an eye on Jan's camera over here. So he just sent over a positive sentiment, and it wrote the word "sure" on the LED.
I didn't specify. In fact, I said whenever it's empty, it should just randomize. So whenever I hit the send button again, it should be showing up something else. Oh yeah, that's my favorite one.
That's great.
So going back to the variables here and putting into sentiment, like let's say, what shall we take? Neutral, negative? What do you want, Ian?
Let's do some more positive ones. Let's keep a positive vibe going. Vivek was asking on LinkedIn if we can zoom in the screen. Vivek, which screen would you like us to zoom in on? Do you want us to zoom in on the Postman screen? Because I think Jan's zoomed that in about as much as is possible right now.
There's one more step I can do.
Okay.
So heading back, sending the request once again. Now it should be all green. Yay!
That's
just trying it once again, so to be sure that it's only sending back positives. Yes, it is. Yeah. Oops. That's a glitch. Why is it now giving me the I don't know? Well, maybe I didn't save that one. Beginner. Conflict. Okay. I'm going to overwrite that one. Heading back. Saying it again. So please only be positive with me.
Yep. All right. So got some French in there.
Doesn't work
that's
yet.
An interesting one.
Is there someone playing games with me? Okay, I'll try to fix that once we get to it and use it. But until then, back to you, Ian.
All right. Sounds good. Cool. So we're going to be tying together a whole bunch of different technologies today. Obviously, we're going to be using Jan's lights for this. But what we're going to do, we're eventually going to kind of circle around. We're going to get to Saswat, which is going to kind of be the heart of what we're working through. But what we wanted to do, kind of as our overall theme, is we wanted to think about how could we do some sentiment analysis and control these IoT lights that Jan has. And so what I did is so we each kind of dug into a piece of this. So Jan got the lights back together and ready to go. And I worked on sentiment analysis using Azure Cognitive Services. And so I'm going to share some links with that, and I'm going to show my screen here. So let me change over to that screen. Let's see. I'm going to be going over to here. All right. So let's go see what I've got going on here as far as sentiment analysis goes. Let me go back and share my screen over here. So here's basically what I've got set up. So I'm using the Azure Cognitive Services. I'm going to drop a link to that in chat. So let me drop that over on LinkedIn. I'm going to drop it in chat over here. If you want to go check this out, it was pretty straightforward. I did have to enable a pay-as-you-go in order to use this, but the free quota is not going to get tripped anytime soon, and so it actually doesn't cost anything to use this on Microsoft. And so we've got an endpoint that we hit, and we've got kind of the version. They pass that in as a parameter, and then we can send over a body of text that we want to analyze here. Right now, I've got it as a variable called text input, but I can put anything that I want in here. I can say, let's do hello world. Let's say I live in Colorado, where it is currently minus 11 Celsius and rather cold. Now, if I send this over to Microsoft, we're going to see some data coming back from them. Let me just move our pictures out of the way just briefly here. And so what we see is it's breaking down every sentence that I send to Microsoft, and it's giving us an overall feeling of, was this positive, was it negative, was it neutral, as well as a score from 0 to 1. And so it was 14% positive, 85% neutral, 1% negative, and then it breaks it down per sentence. So the first sentence where I said hello world, it said that was 71% neutral, 28% positive. And then when we got into saying I live in Colorado, where it's rather cold, it also thought that was a neutral sentiment, 99% score of that one being neutral. And so what we wanted to do today was actually find a way to say, well, what if we ask ChatGPT some interesting questions? Would there be an easy way to sort of pull all of that together to where we could have ChatGPT answer a question for us? And so this is going to be a pretty interactive stream. Once we get all this tied together, we're going to be asking chat for some suggestions here. But what we want to do is ultimately we want to take this sentiment analysis and we want to break it down sentence by sentence. And for each one of those pieces of sentiment, we want to send that over to Jan's lights. And so I think Jan's going to keep the picture on, back and forth between himself and the LEDs once we get to the point of actually doing the LED panel. And what we should see is as it's analyzing each sentence that we get back from ChatGPT, we should see the lights changing. And so we'll have some fun with that today. And so we're going to take some suggestions from all of you about what we should ask ChatGPT. And so we're gonna switch over to Saswat here in a moment. But when you send in a suggestion of what we should ask ChatGPT, please keep it professional, keep it family friendly. We want to make sure that we're not going to cause any problems here. So Saswat, let's go over to see what you put together as far as like ChatGPT and talking to OpenAI and getting into that as well. I'm going to share some links for the OpenAI API as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you don't know already, ChatGPT is a product by the OpenAI team, and OpenAI has been very generous in giving almost $18 of credit free when you sign up. So if you just go to their website that Ian has sent, you will be able to sign up and then get an API key from there. Their API is also pretty simple. It just has this V1 completion API. Essentially, when you're talking with ChatGPT, it's trying to complete a question giving an answer to a question. So yeah, it's a post request which has a kind of few different models that they have trained their artificial intelligence engine with. So the one which we want to use is the text DaVinci 003. That's the one they use for chat GPT. And then there are a few other configurations which are pretty much default. So temperature is something like how creative does the answer need to be. So it's a value between 0 and 2. So we are like, okay, be 0.5, so it does not give us absurd answers. uh, so
That could be fun too, though.
yeah, that could be fun. You could experiment with those values and see what works for you. uh, yeah, so let's ask it some question, like, let's say, tell me about the pyramids of Giza.
And
When
the
you
max
type, I
tokens
thought you were.
is the number.
Yes, so the way this completion API works is it tries to generate n number of tokens. So
Okay.
here we are saying is that limit your answers to 128 tokens. So 128 tokens could be 128 words here. So yeah, so it
Okay.
gave us a nice little answer. It says that the pyramid Gizas are three ancient pyramids. So it completes your thing. So this, you can continue talking to this engine, and this completion engine will keep giving you nice answers, and probably we'll feed this to sentiment analysis and see how this works.
Cool. Jan, what were you saying about us typing?
No, I was just expecting Saswat to type, tell me about the Python programming language. And then
Oh, we can do
you were writing
that.
Pyramids of Giza. But that's okay as well.
Let's see what ChatGPT has to say about Python.
Yeah.
Should mention Guido van Rossum, hopefully.
Maybe also 7 world wonders.
Maybe. High level interpreted programming language created
Yeah.
by Guido. There we go.
Yep.
1991. Wow, it's been around a
Yeah.
while.
It's been a while.
Hmm.
Emphasizes code readability, notably using significant white space. Yep. Tabs versus spaces, always a great debate in the programming land for sure. Well, today we're actually not going to get into too much programming. What we're going to show off today, and this is going to be kind of the heart of what we're pulling in here, is we're going to get into Postman Flows, which is a kind of a low code, no code, kind of a, well, I think Saswat, your team refers to it as a visual programming language.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be moving over to flows, and we're going to show everybody how we can pull this stuff in with more of a visual workflow of how are we going to tie in asking ChatGPT a question. How can we take the response, feed that into my sentiment analysis at Azure Cognitive Services, and then how can we loop through those responses to then send over to Jan's light panel? And so we wanted to give just a quick intro of like these are the different APIs that we're calling within Postman. We're in a team environment right now, and so we're all able to kind of go in and add work, and that would be a very typical type of thing that you might be doing at work. You might be working on a collection with different environments and so on with teammates, and have to make sure, well, you know, how do we make sure we're not overwriting each other's work, and how do we do this in a collaborative fashion? And so we kind of wanted to do this on purpose today, where we might all be working in flows and like pulling these things together a little bit. And so we're going to kind of switch gears here a little bit. And I'm going to have Saswat kind of talk me through step by step, how do we do this in flows? Like, how do we get started pulling all these things together? So I changed my sentiment analysis to use a variable here called text input. And so we're going to kind of go through this step by step and talk a little bit about how do we set up our environments, how do we set up all the different sorts of like what do we need to do basically to pull this into flows. So Saswat, let's start with the flows panel here. We want to create a brand new flow so that everything is like brand new and ready to go. Let me close down some of these other things here. So let's go create a brand new flow, and we'll just call this, we need a clever name for this now.
One of the 3 hardest things.
Yeah. Let's, gosh, Let's do
We have three things. Maybe something with Trinity.
yeah. So we'll do the trifecta of AI, AI, and IoT. Because really, I mean, we're using an AI to send into an AI for analysis, and then passing that off to IoT. All right. So we have a fun little name. So we've got this cool little thing that says start. So we're going to start and
Yeah.
click and add some new blocks. And so these blocks are basically going to be calling the collection endpoints that we have. So if we kind of come back here, we see we've got a collection endpoint for the sentiment. We've got a collection endpoint for our matrix. We've got a collection endpoint for the ChatGPT. And so we're going to be accessing these as blocks. So that's what. Where do we get started from here?
Yeah, awesome. So this is the start block, and this is where everything begins, right?
Okay.
And as you can see that it says that click and drag to add a new block. So maybe you can just click on the port that you see on the edge, and then drag and drop it on the screen. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yeah. So first thing we might want to do is like send a request to ChatGPT. So we just select a request, and then we click on add request on the top. If you can see, yeah, that's the one. And then
Okay.
from here we can select the OpenAPI uh, request. Yes. And then
All
we
right.
need to select the environment that we want to use. There's this button called add environment. We probably want to select the environment we want to use here.
Yep. So the nice thing about this is, for each of our collections, we could each have a different environment. I put all of our environment stuff into one place. But for example, Jan could have, a host with the IP address of his light panel. I could have a variable in my environment called host, which actually goes to Microsoft. Saswat could have an environment with host, where we all have the same name. And so each of these blocks can refer to a different environment. Which could also be helpful if you're testing through like a development into a staging environment. You could call like your development endpoints, but actually using a stage environment at some point in a flow to actually go access a staging environment. So in this case, I've got one. I just called it sentiment, and I think I put everything in there. Although it looks like you've added one called OpenAPI or OpenAI secrets. So I'll use yours. I'll pull in
Okay,
your environment here.
awesome. Then
Yeah.
we
There was another
Oh,
person asking to zoom in. I think we can't anymore, but if you're on YouTube, I tried that out. You can still increase the screen resolution, the quality a bit, and see at least sharper. Maybe that's a hint on getting more of what is happening on the screen. If we zoom in more, we basically can't work on that screen anymore. I'm sorry.
yeah. So the best I can do is collapse that down a little bit, but yeah, as far as zooming this in a little bit, it's gonna start to well, actually, that's about as far as I can go right now. Cool. All right. So we're gonna answer a question. We're gonna use the sentiment environment that I've
yes.
got set up here. So what do we need to do from here? So it looks like there's a prompt. We've got an API key as well. So how did it find the prompt and API key based on that collection?
Yeah, so Flows is trying to be smart here. It's trying to figure out what variables you might have used in your application in your request. So
Okay.
whenever you select a request, it scans the entire request to find if you have used any variables, and then it gives you as an option to fill those variables. So the
Neat.
way I had designed it is I was using my secrets, OpenAI secrets environment, and I had used the API key variable. But I went ahead and changed it right now to be key, which is what we have used in the sentiment. So if you
Okay.
have done something like that, you have changed your variable names, etc. You can go and click on that refresh button on top of the variables, near the variables. If you see there's a small refresh button, yeah, and it
Okay.
will
Aha.
it
There
will
we go.
rescan and repopulate all of the things that you have. So as you
Okay.
can see, it's the key that it showed you this is the variable I'm filling in. The prompt is
Mhm.
something which is empty at this point. So you would see that it's an unresolved variable, and this is something we might have to feed into the flow.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so there are a few different ways of going about it. Like I want to give that string that I was asking as a question, right? There's one way to just directly inline add it to here. So if you click on that, or say which says click, but yeah, to add a block, you could add a string here. So if you just search for a string block, it would show up as a string. Yeah, and you can enter your text here. The same string block
Okay.
can also be added to the canvas. That's another way of doing it. So if you just right click on the canvas, you can add the string block as well. Yeah. Yeah. In this case, you can
Okay.
also fill the string from outside. So your choice is yours. In this case, your block will no longer be a string block, but it would be a select block. So we'd have to change the block as well. So that also option that you have.
I see.
So yeah,
And then it looks like there's these little like sort
yes.
of nubs
Yeah.
here. Can I drag that down here to prompt?
Yeah.
Oh, that.
So right now we have already set prompt is a string. We want to change it. We want to say that I don't want to define it inline. I would want to take it as an input. So we can right click and then do swap block.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then we do the select. We there's a block called select. We use that. Yeah,
Select data from an input. Okay, using
yeah,
a path. I see. Okay,
yeah,
and then this is actually defining that path.
yeah, uh, yeah. Oh, wow.
So, good question. So when I get close, it changes the look of it, but it didn't actually
It's
attach.
actually connected. I think there is a little bit of UI. If you could just refresh the page, it should just start working.
Okay.
Or try it the other way around from the prompt to the input.
Okay.
It is in fact connected. Just a
Oh, it is
UI
connected. Yep.
glitch. It's just a UI glitch. I
Okay.
think we'll get the engineers to fix it. Yeah, it's
Okay.
connected. Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it. And you just click the start, and it should send the request.
Okay, so I'm going to move our pictures down here to the bottom just so folks can see there's a run button down here at the bottom that our pictures were covering up. And this is basically what we would select to actually start running this whole flow inside of here. And so if I zoom out on this a little bit here, oops, zoom out using this control for a moment. When I click run, you'll see some animation actually happening here from that start block. Although in dark mode you don't really see it as much, but you see some animation on this block. Now it does take a moment for ChatGPT to answer this request, but once it does, hopefully we'll see. So we have a success. There was no failure. So now on the success output, we can see
Yes.
that we got a body with a number of keys, and so on. So what can we do with this from here, Saswat? So let me zoom back in
Uh,
on this.
what do we want to do now? We know that the API of the sentiment of the OpenAI gives us choices and answers inside that. So we want to pick up that string or the answer. So yeah, we can drag in and again choose another block, and this time we'll use the select block to select what value we need from the body. So same process
Okay.
again, drag and drop, use the select block. Yeah.
So now we're telling it what we want to select.
Yes.
Oh, cool. And it actually broke down that whole body
Yes.
with the objects. We got the choices.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Flows is again trying to be again intelligent with your response. It's try to scan your response and create some kind of a type system or a type tree for you so that you can select and do this autocomplete easily. So it has gone through your response. It has figured out that this is the structure of data that the response has. It's filling this out for you. The other intelligent thing also it does that if you have examples defined within your request, it is even able to predict this structure without even sending the request. So that's one more way of like
Oh,
working
interesting.
with the type systems to give it more hints. So what we
Okay.
need is the choices and the text from it. So we just go to the choices and we just select text, click on text.
Okay. Now it
It's
looks like there's an index position here for record, but I think we told it to only give back one response, right?
Yes.
So we
So
don't
it
need to
will have
index
one
this.
response. So it's a 0th index.
Okay.
So we just select it and it just fills that for you. And we should be able to run the flow again and see the output from this block.
Okay.
An easier way for you to use a API which takes a long time like this is probably to create a mock out of it and use the mock over and over again, and then when you're
Hmm.
ready, swap it with a real block. But at least in this case, we should be able to see the output from this block.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
so I did see a little bit of an animation that looks like it
Yes.
was pulling some data into here. So how do we
Yeah.
actually see that string? Oh,
Yes.
actually just
If you
hovering
hover
over it.
over the port, we
Okay.
see that it found that
So
string.
living in Colorado is a great experience. The state is known for stunning natural beauty with the Rocky Mountains. Yep. Skiing, snowboarding, hiking, camping, fishing. Home to some of the best craft breweries in the country. Great place to explore. I mean, this is all sounding pretty positive. 300 days of sunshine. I mean, it's sunny out today, but it's also really stinking cold. So, all right. So now we've got this text that I could, I guess, pull right into my sentiment analysis from here.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we want to add another block to send another request. Is that what we want to do?
Yeah, definitely. Same
Okay.
process. Right click on the canvas, add
So
your
right click
request
on the
block.
canvas, send
There's another
request.
neat way to do it also. You could drag your request from your collection sidebar onto the canvas, and that also fills in the request by for you. If you want to try that,
How do we do that?
if
Let me
you
delete this block.
yes, if you go to the collection sidebar and open up the request, yes, whichever
Oh,
request.
because this panel still stays open.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
interesting.
So if
Oh, this
you
is
have
new.
this request, you can just drag and drop it.
Drag this out.
Yeah,
What?
Nice.
it fills it for you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow,
Uh,
your
it
team's
might.
been doing some pretty cool
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
We just refreshed the variable once. I guess it took some time. It did not populate the variables for you. You could just replace. Yeah,
Okay.
just does it. Yeah.
Awesome. Um, so someone's asking in chat. Let me show this real quick. Is it possible to ask for a script for a pre-request for a collection and add this pre-request with the call in test part to automate the testing faster? So if I understand, yes, you could go through and actually like make these other requests as part of a pre-request script. Yes, that's absolutely possible. What we wanted to show today was how to kind of go from one request into another using flows so that you don't have to write the code for this. The whole purpose of building the flows product into Postman was to allow people who were not typically programmers to have a visual tool that they could use where maybe some programmers on the team wanted to build out, here's how to call this API request, here's how to like parse out the response and so on, but then have like a visual block tool that people could sort of chain these things together and sort of experience the API or to tie together a bunch of your company's APIs to come with some sort of output. And so it was really meant to be a tool for non-programmers to also be involved in API development. Okay, so we were able to drag that response out here. Oops, let me move this around a little bit. So I've got I made a variable in my response body, or sorry, my request body called text input. Can I literally just connect these two things and it'll like magically show up in here?
Yeah, that's the idea.
Really?
You
Wow.
decide where your data
All
goes
right,
through.
so I'm
So,
gonna
yeah.
drag that. Actually, oops. Oh, that was interesting. Let me just drag this down a little bit just so we can see it on the
Yeah.
screen. So I'm just gonna drag it from that block down to my text input,
Yeah.
and there it is.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's that simple. We wanted to just make it one click of making your data flow from one block to another block. And the whole idea
Okay.
of the flows programming language is this. The word flows comes from this idea that your data flows from one block to another block, and you can use it to program. It's a very
Yeah.
Okay.
interesting idea that works most of the time. Yeah. We might
Yeah.
have
I
also had the environment here to the sentiment API.
Oh, that's
So
right. Yep.
that's something. Yeah.
Go ahead,
I
Jan.
like that it previews the output of the select block. I was wondering if you had that preview already when selecting what should be selected, because it only showed you like what is the keys, but not the values. So
Uh,
how did you know to select the text part without looking at the actual body of that output? I mean, you knew, Ian, because you had
Mm-hmm.
inspected it before, but in that
Right.
flow of creating that flows, it might be helpful to see a preview already on the selection process. Is that possible, Sashwat?
Preview in the selection process. So when you what exactly do you mean when you say the selection process?
So
Mm-hmm.
when Ian showed the choices for what he could be selecting
Mm-hmm.
on the select block, he
Right.
knew that he would be using the text one. Yeah,
Right.
exactly that window.
Right.
If there was a hovering window or so that already showed what is behind the text, what
Mm-hmm.
string,
Oh yeah,
that would be great because oftentimes you don't know which element you want, but by seeing the
right.
actual value, it would help.
Yes, yes, yes. So that's what something is just coming up in the next release, next version. So we are working on it, which is called preview. So you
Cool.
should essentially be able to see the string. The challenges
Nice.
with Flow is that unless and until you execute an API, you don't really know what the value is, right? So we wanted to
Mm,
have an UI where you're even able to work without the value. But when values are there, we enrich the experience to show the value. So we are working on that
Gotcha.
with the preview feature, which is coming up really, really soon. I
Yeah.
hope everyone will enjoy that. Yeah.
Ahmed is asking in chat if it's free to consume Open API right now. And
OpenAI.
Saswat, you mentioned that the Open API or the ChatGPT, like they give you a credit to sort of start, so you can start using it for free.
Yeah.
Um,
So when you sign up newly for OpenAI, they give you $18 credit as of now, and you can use it until you consume all of your $18 worth of free uses. After that, it is paid. Yeah.
okay.
And I think $18 is quite sufficient for you to experiment a lot. It's like $0.0004 for 1,000 tokens or something like that.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah,
So
it's
that so that
pretty generous.
$18 is going to last a long time.
That's gonna last a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's also the reminder to not make your tokens too long, like not request too many, because that could eat up your credit pretty
Yeah, that's
fast.
Yes.
true. Yep. All right, so I'm going to zoom out on this for just a moment so we can kind of see the whole flow here. So we've got the start. It's going to come through. It's going to ask ChatGPT, about living in Colorado. It's going to extract that text. It's going to send that as the input to my Microsoft endpoint, and then hopefully we'll see some output on that. So I'm going to click that run button, which is hidden by our photos right now. And so we can see the animation. It's still working on this one, but eventually we should see, oh, there's the animation coming over to here. And did that actually work? I didn't see this block animate.
It was rather quick. Yeah,
Yeah, I was going to say
it
Microsoft
was
answered
very
that
quick.
one really,
Yeah.
really quickly. So we got a body. So the failures block, when I hover over failures, it doesn't pop anything up, but it does when I pop over success. So
Yes.
we'll presume
Can
that
you,
that worked.
yeah, can you just open on the
You can
success
you can
view,
hover over
Yeah.
success and just go and open up. If you hover over success and then go to the tool tab, you should
the
be able to
body
expand
on
those
the
bodies.
triangle? Yeah,
Your
Yep.
nice.
cursors are.
So
Yeah.
3 keys, document. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
So our overall sentiment was positive, and then it broke that down into 7 sentences. And so we can see that Microsoft actually broke that down. Um, it's going to be a little hard to see unless I zoom out on this, but we can see all the different sentences that we got here. So the first sentence was positive. We can see the confidence scores. So it was the other interesting thing about this flows preview here is you're rounding these numbers, because these numbers would be from 0 to 1 as coming in as floating point numbers, but it looks like flows is interpreting them as integers. So we're actually losing out on the actual percentages, or the possible percentages here.
It's only in the visual layer. In the
Oh, okay.
internals of flows, I think it preserves those values.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, this is a good pointer. I'll take it to the team and see why it's rounding off. It should
Yeah.
not, at least. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So we can see at least that the seven 7 sentences coming back. That one's positive. That one was neutral. That one's positive, neutral, positive, positive, positive. So our overall sentiment was positive. Um, so cool. So we have a pretty good sense now of what this is going to pass through. So what I'd like to do now in flows is actually set up a loop where for each of these sentences we can make a request to Jan's lights for the positive and negative, and maybe show it for like a second, and then like loop to the next one and show that for a second, loop to the next one, show that for a second, and then end on the overall sentiment that we're getting from here. So we're going to need to extract a lot of information out of this, Saswat.
That
So
sounds
hopefully
tricky.
this is something that we can do here. So how can we set up a loop where I can grab this array of sentences and iterate over each one of these, but then also come back at the end and pull out this core sentiment after that? Is that going to be possible, or should we store this in
It
some
should
other
be
kind of
possible.
variable?
It should
Okay.
it should be possible.
All right.
It's pretty simple, right? We have this idea that we need two pieces of data. One is the overall
Yep.
sentiment, and we need one which is the list. So we just drag
Okay.
two selects from this from the output, and we have one select which is selecting your first value, the other select is selecting the other value, and that's the
Okay.
start of it.
Okay. So I literally drag it out from here,
Yes.
and I do a select,
Yeah.
and then I drag a second one out here.
Second
Oh,
select,
okay.
yeah.
And do another select.
Yeah.
Okay. And so now I have to give it the path. And so
Yes.
this is where, let's see. So I want that main
Overall
sentiment,
sentiment. Yeah.
which we're going to get as a string.
Yeah.
And then the confidence scores, we won't worry about the confidence scores, but then the other one, we're going to select the sentences
sentiment.
list.
Yes.
So I'll start with just the overall sentiment. And
Yeah.
then on this one, we're going to come down and we're going to pick the actual sentence list.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So this one's is going to be our array, and this one is the overall sentiment.
Yeah.
So we'll end on that one later on. So maybe I'll just
Later
pull
on.
that over that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Now-
Let's just stack it. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, so with the idea this is meant to be a visual programming language, there's still some expectation that you know what an array is, you know what a string is. And I think most people, in common language, they would understand the idea of what a string is going to be, but they might not understand what an array is, or and that's why some programming languages call them lists as opposed to arrays. Just this is a list of data. Has the team given any thought into how to make the terminology on this stuff maybe a little more like non-programmer friendly, or is this meant to
Yeah,
still be a
definitely.
tool for programmers?
It's definitely been a struggle to find the fine balance between being useful for programmers as well as being informative enough for non-programmers to be able to use it. So certain
Okay.
words which are like list was chosen very with lot of thought, saying that okay, list makes sense for most people, even programmers can understand and map the idea of a list with an array. So yeah, that's been there.
Yep.
That's always been
Cool.
a struggle for us, though.
Yeah, well, I think that's why Python called it a list, because they
Yeah.
wanted to kind of go with readability and ease of understanding and so on. Okay,
Yeah.
so we've got our list. So how do we make a loop out of this then, so that we can loop over each of these sentences? What would that involve?
Perfect. Again, another block comes to our rescue, which is the for block. So we add the for block, and it lets us iterate over lists.
Okay, so I just right click on the canvas
Right-click
and
on
then
the
search for
canvas.
the word
For
for.
yeah,
Hey, for loop. How about that?
yes,
Okay, and it's looking for a list as an input. So
Yes.
I'm going to tie these together.
yeah. That's
It's
pretty
like
much.
magic. This is great. Okay.
Yeah, so
So
I
what do
want
we
to
do from
draw
here?
attention towards the port a little bit here. So if you see the list port is solid in color, so that means that it is required. Like the block will not execute unless and until that port is connected. But the
Okay.
start here, if you see, is not required. And start here is a special port which does not require any data. It's just used to control when the loop starts. So
So-
maybe you have
So
yeah,
real quick, just from a terminology point of view, when you talk about ports, you're talking about these little nubs off the
Yes.
side here.
This-
So
the-
this one was solid, where this one is
Yes.
kind of hollowed out and it's
Yeah.
just outlined. And so that means
Yes.
that the start one is optional, but the list one is required.
yes.
Okay. All right, cool.
Can you disconnect once again? Because I think I didn't see it, that it was, and once it is connected, it is solid.
I'll just delete the block and start over.
How do you disconnect the
So-
connection, Saswat?
You can just click over the link and right click and delete it. That's or delete key.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
This
So
is
we can see
solid.
as soon as we drop that for block, we see that one is solid. So we know that it's a required field.
Yes.
And so what Jan was asking is there a way to disconnect it? And what Saswat was saying is if we just right click anywhere on that path, we can say delete, and it'll delete that
Nice.
path between the blocks. Okay.
Learning a lot today.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
nice.
All right, so we got our for loop, and so now this is going to loop over each of those sentences. Now that sentence had it was kind of its own nested block of data.
Yeah.
So how do we tell it which part of that data to sort of interact that we can then pass on to Jan's endpoint?
Right. So the for block is like a loop. It emits these events, emit these items from each of the sentences. So the output of this for block over a period of time will be these different items. So we can
Okay.
go ahead and then select from that item, and that would be the way forward for it. Yeah.
So we need a select block from that because we need to
Yeah.
select out of that object. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So
So if
from
you
that,
see, yes,
yeah.
from
So
that
from
list,
that
it's going
block
to
we
give you
had.
like, yeah.
Okay.
The sentiment.
So we had the sentiment.
Get
We
the
had the
first sentiment, I guess
targets.
that's the one.
Yeah, turns out there's a lot of information in there. But yeah, we just really want
Yes.
that sentiment
Yeah.
string because that's what Jan's endpoint was looking
Mhm.
for. It was looking for just a string of positive, negative, neutral
Mixed.
to send over.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So now that we've extracted that, we can send that to Jan's endpoint. Now, is there a way that we can bring this back into the for loop afterwards? So what I want to do is send this over to Jan's endpoint, do like wait for a second so that we can actually see the thing change, but then come back to the for loop, or like how does it know to come back to the for loop for the next piece?
Yes. So Flows is again trying to be intelligent here. It really
Okay.
knows the forward uh, data that it has sent. So unless and until it sends the
Okay.
next piece of data, it does not go forward. So it's trying to
Okay.
do a loop really intelligently, so you don't have to come back to it. There's another
Okay.
kind of loops which is diagrammatic. Like you can come back to the same thing, but those are real loops. Those are
Hmm.
different cases where you want to
I
use
see.
it in case of an infinite loop or something. But this is the you can just add a delay block here, and that would do it.
Okay. All right. So we're going to go back to our collections, and this time we're going to drag over our blinking lights. We'll bring that over. It's a great name, by the way. All right. So now we're going to send that over to Jan's endpoint. Now Jan, okay. So we'll hit refresh on that. Okay. Here we go. So we had the host and we had the request body. So is it part of the request body that we're setting up here, Jan, or is there another
No,
variable that
we're
we should be
looking
passing the sentence?
for a variable to set, and this is not on the request end, but we could set it up in the request as well. So we probably
Okay.
need to head back to the collection and set up the variable, right?
Yeah, so this is
Okay.
one tricky part of it. Part of this particular example that we have today is that we need this variable inside of the pre-request script, but there is no way that we have told Flows has any idea about how to know that this is the variable name that I want to pick up. So what we can
Okay.
go to the request, actually the collection right now, we can go to the collection where we have the variables defined in the variable section. And in the variable section, let's go to the sentiment, and we have the
Okay.
initial value is positive. We can make that a variable instead. We just do curly braces and write
Hmm.
sentiments there. Yeah.
So we're making a variable out of our variable.
Yes, it's
Okay.
inception going on here,
Yeah,
but
let me
that's
let me
how.
uh, let me just zoom out here and close up some
Yeah.
of these panels here. So what we did is we went to the collection, we went to variables, and then inside of variables, Jan had defined this variable called sentiment, where Jan was setting this to positive, negative, neutral, mixed. But now we're using the handlebars like double curly brackets, and we're just giving it another variable name. In this case, we're using the same name.
Yeah.
And so this is now going to allow flows to see this as a variable.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay.
Yep.
So I got to
That's
save that
exactly.
work.
Yeah.
So we'll save that work and then we'll come back to our flows over here. So if I refresh this now, so nothing really happened there. So how do we know how to pull
Oh,
that in?
okay. 1 second.
Did you save?
I did
Yes.
save. Yep. Come back to variables. Yeah, it did save.
Yeah.
Okay. 1 second.
Oh, so here's our team collaboration. So Saswat was
Yeah,
just modifying that in real time, and so I can actually see that changing on my screen while Saswat is
yeah. Now
making that
it's up.
change.
Yeah, you should be able to see it.
So what changed? Like what was different from what you typed in or what I typed in? Did I just type it in wrong or something?
No, I think because I had opened it and it ended up in a conflict situation, so it did not really save it.
Oh,
So
okay.
when I resolved the conflict, it showed up.
Oh, okay.
What's the fourth variable now? I can see it. It's behind my screen.
Oh, there's an LED mural secret. So it looks like it pulled in both of the variables from the collection.
Oh, the
Yeah.
request body. It's the other one.
Oh,
Oh, okay. Oh,
To set the LED Mural host and LED Mural secret, you will need to assign a environment.
yep. So we have the environment picked, and I've already got your stuff set in my
Oh yeah.
environment.
Okay.
So that should already be done.
yeah.
I don't
It's
want to
picking up
hover over
those
them because I don't
variables
want
from
to.
the yeah. It's picking up those variables from the sentiments environment. Essentially, the other
Okay,
ones which are not relevant to this request, but they just show up just in case.
cool. So I'm going to move that block up here
Yeah.
just a little bit, just so we can see a little bit better. So now we're going to drag sentiment down to the sentiment variable here. So it's going to pass my sentiment string down into Jan's sentiment variable.
Yeah.
Now it's asking for a path here. So do I need to define anything in that path, or is it just going to know what to do?
It's optional. Like if you have like if you have a very complex structure, you could also do the
Hmm.
selection here. So maybe you
Okay.
can just remove that first select block and just directly connect your previous for loop to here. In that case, you could just directly do sentiment here.
Oh, I
So
see.
yeah,
Okay.
we can also attempt that as a demo if you like to show
Yeah,
that.
let's try it.
Yeah,
So I'm going to delete that
yeah,
select block. So when we were coming off of our for loop here, each item was this nested structure of data.
yeah.
And instead of isolating that variable the way that we had before, is we can just bring this down into here, but then this path needs to be that string
Yes.
of our sentiment string because
Yeah.
that's what Jan is expecting in their API. All right, cool. All right, so we've got the sentiment passing all the way through here. Now, Jan, your endpoint takes about not quite a second,
Yeah.
but it takes a little bit of time. So what I'd like to do is just try this out and see like if it's going to set these lights. So everybody
Go ahead.
keep an eye over here on Jan's light panel. We're going to go ahead and we're going to run this whole thing. Now, it does take a moment for ChatGPT to respond, but hopefully we'll see some things happening on Jan's LED panel here in a moment. All right, so hey, we see some animation happening,
Oh,
Yep.
and
oh wow. It's
we
quick.
got a whole bunch of
Oh my God.
negative stuff. We got some positive stuff. Look at that, it's working. We got some sentiment analysis. So now
How,
that we've
how
looped
many
through
were
all
that?
of that,
7?
that's a good question. I don't know if it was still 7 because it changed.
We can just hover over the previous block and we can see the value. Let's hover over this select block which was selecting the sentences. Not here, the
Oh,
previous
oh,
request.
this one up here.
Yeah,
This one.
yeah,
Yep. So 6 in that case.
6 in
Oh
this.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
Where
All right.
can we
Well,
make it a
that
bit
worked.
slower?
So to slow it down, we could add a delay after this, right? In the
yes,
flow, there's a delay block that we can use.
yeah. So
So,
And
let's
can
go to
we?
the link which connects the for to this request block, and there's a plus icon that shows up on the link. Yes, on the
uh,
link. If you hover over this connection, this
The
link,
line
this line.
as
Yeah,
a
there's the
plus.
plus
oh,
Yeah.
on
icon.
the plus sign here.
Yeah, let's click on
Oh,
that
we can
plus
add something
and
in
just
line.
add delay there. Just search for delay. Yeah,
Search for delay.
yeah,
Oh, and
it
we can
adds
tell
a
it how
delay
long to
indicator.
delay.
Yeah.
What do you
Now
think, Jan? Do you want to do 1 full second?
Yeah, go with 1 second. And maybe because we're nearly at the end of our time, maybe we can also output in this same step, like the sentence that is being analyzed. Is that
We
possible
still
as
have
well, Sashwat?
we still have a half hour, so we got plenty of time.
Oh, nice. Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I thought we were
Yeah.
assigned to 1 hour. Oh, cool.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
sorry. We do 90 minutes on our live stream.
Yeah, if we want to output the sentiment, we can just use the
Not the
log.
sentiment, but the sentence itself.
The sentence itself, yeah, definitely. We can go back to where we were extracting the sentence. S-
So that's
It should
here.
be in the item as well. No, that's the sentiment.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Let's just find wherever the sentence was. Yeah, here we can just put
Yep.
in the log
The
here.
text.
Yeah,
Okay.
the text.
So can we add that
Can
as
we?
a, oh, there's another plus sign?
Um, the log block would actually replace this one because it's a terminal block.
Oh,
But
okay.
what we can do is drag another line and just use a log block. And before log, we can again do a select if we want to. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay. So let's drag this down here. So we'll do a select,
Select.
and then from here we'll do a
Do the
log.
Yeah.
And that's going to log down to the Postman console that we see down
Yes.
here in the
Yes.
bottom left. Okay, so now we'll pick up the actual path here. So we have the sentiment.
Text.
Text.
Yeah.
You can search here as well. If you just type out text, it will find text for you. Yeah. It
Oh,
just
nice.
found- yeah.
All right, cool. And then we'll log that. Cool. So then we should see in the console as this runs, we'll see everything happening here kind of as it goes. So let me close that back down. Okay. So, well, let's ask chat. So chat, what should we ask? So I've been asking it all about living in Colorado, but I already live in Colorado. So let's give it another question that we can ask ChatGPT. Please keep it professional, keep it friendly for our stream. But why don't we get some suggestions from chat on what we can ask ChatGPT, and then we're going to pass this all the way through Jan's lights, and we'll see some stuff. While we're waiting for chat, the last thing that we wanted to do was take this final sentiment and send that as one final request once the for loop was finished. So is there a way that we can sort of access, like once the for loop is over, to then come back to this other data and send another request after that?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
The way we would go about doing it is a little bit different than how you think about it. So there's something called as a collect block. So that's a friend of the for block. So for block emits all of these events, and collect block sort of collects all of these events. So collect block
Okay.
knows when the for has ended. Now what we want
Okay.
to do is we want to do this after the entire request is over. So let's place a collect block after the request, the last request that we send in the loop. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, is that not going to chain, like once this request finishes, it's going to, like, we want this one to go back to the for loop.
Yeah, it would automatically go back to the for loop. The collect will keep
Okay.
just collecting those responses or wait for the entire thing to get over. So we can just do a collect. Yeah.
Again, there we go. Do a collect block. Okay.
Yes, it collects the results of the loop. So
Okay.
so here what we are interested is that finish event. Like the finish is
Oh, down here.
when it
Okay.
finishes. And once it finishes, we can send our final request. So we can place another request, the matrix request, and this time let's connect finish to send. And this is the important part of these signals, right? It's like a flow control when you have really complex
Oh,
requirements.
interesting.
It says that when you finish all of these events, then only send this request, and then we can connect our initial stuff here. Yeah.
Okay. So then the final sentiment is what we've got kind of over here in this other block.
Yes.
So
And we just connect that to the request there, right? It should just
visually try to connect these things. Let me zoom out a little bit here just so everyone can see. We're going to drag this all the way down here to that incoming sentiment over here. So once it finishes collecting all of those answers, then it's going to send one final, this was the last overall sentiment. So whatever it ends on Jan's light panel was the kind of the overall score of positive, negative, neutral mixed that we got back from Azure. All right. Cool. Well, let's go all the way back here. We had one question come in from chat. Our API is going to change the world. That's a fantastic question. So let me zoom in here, and we'll add that as our incoming prompt. Our API is going to change the world.
And don't forget to open up the console so we can live see the pictures on the LED Mural match the sentences.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Now we were only logging the sentence itself. Should we also log the sentiment, or do we just want to see the
I think
sentence?
that can everyone for themselves decide if that's correct or not.
All right, sounds good.
You have to be quick in
Um,
reading. You have only 1 second.
yeah, for sure. All right, well let's hit that run button, and we'll see what happens here in the console as this whole thing executes. So there's our sentences. And I'll scroll back up and look at these. Oh, we got an error on one of these. So we'll come
I
back and
think we
take a look at
forgot to
that.
set the environment variable there.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Yep. So we can definitely see the different sentences that it was printing out here. APIs are already changing the world. There we go. Yeah, they allow companies to quickly, easily build applications. All right. Cool. So we were definitely sending over all these other requests, and if we wanted to expand out and see like this is what we actually sent over to Jan's endpoint and so on. So let me clear this out, and let's go
So
back
we're
and we'll
not,
set that.
yeah, we're not getting the sentences in the same timing as the images appear. So that's probably due to the break, the delay that we introduced there.
Okay. Should I do one more delay before we do this sentiment, like the final sentiment? Should I add one
Not
more
for the
delay there?
final. I think the single sentences got outputted in a block, like they were
Okay.
listed
Yeah.
all at once, and not in parallel to the images appearing.
Oh,
So
okay.
you could probably fork after the delay. So
Yeah.
connect
Just
the
delete that
text
link.
block after the delay.
Do that up here.
Yeah.
Yes. And this is
Okay.
the power of flows. You could
Right.
change your logic without really
Oops.
needing to write a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
Oh no.
It's
Why did you
it was having
delete?
problems. It was having problems dragging it around the screen.
Oh, okay.
So let me go back and we'll add that log. Oops.
We just click
There
it
you
on
go.
the screen.
Log. Okay. All right. So let us have the recording. So this will be up on the YouTube channel. So you can check out youtube.com/postman. And you'll have access to all of our videos over there. Let's get one more question from chat. So anybody else in chat wants to ask a question, and we'll send that over. While we're waiting on that, I want to verify that I picked an environment. Yeah, so the very last sentiment that we send over, I picked the environment on that one. So that one will not give us an error any longer. Wow, this looks so cool, like chaining all these things together.
Does.
And no programming at all, really. I mean, Jan had to do some pre-request script for all the different kinds of like positive and negative outputs that we see on the screen. But aside from that, no real programming needed here. I mean, a little bit of understanding of like this is what a loop is. So yeah, if anybody else in chat has a question, Saswat, what kind of question should we ask?
That's a hard question. You
Uh,
can
is is
respond
is
here.
ChatGPT going to change the world?
Um, yeah, sure.
All right, so it's
Is this a
ChatGPT.
humble AI? We will find out in a second. Stay
Oh,
tuned.
this will be a good one for sure. We'll see how long it takes to answer this question. If it's like, yeah, of
Open the
course it's going to change the
console.
world, and answer right away. Wow, it went really fast. All right,
Mixed. Yes. I don't know. Was it three
all right. Well,
sentences? Or two
let's go look at
sentences and the final one?
the final one. Came back neutral, so it said no. ChatGPT is not going to change the
It's in
world.
the-
However, it may help change the way people interact with technology. So it only came back with two sentences and then a final screen that was overall neutral.
Mm-hmm.
What is the best operating system? Yeah. So someone was asking why we couldn't put the pre-request script into flows. And so with the way that Jan set up the actual panels, you would need some way of sort of displaying that or like programming the way that that Jan's lights were actually interacting in that way. So for example, if I go back and we take a look at the pre-request script for this, let me close out the console here. if we go look at the pre-request script, we see that Jan had to set up like all the different colors and then the actual way of programming the matrix, in this case, for that check mark, for the positive check mark. Having to define each of these, I mean, I suppose we could have programmed each of these as a variable inside of flows. Is there a way to like randomly pick values in flows? Do you have like random blocks for things like that? You do?
Yeah, we have
All
something
right.
called as evaluate block, which has like a ton of different functions. So you could
Okay.
define all of these and then use the evaluate block to pick things up from the randomized sort. We have around at this point around 80 functions that we pre-exposed, and we are continuing to add to that list.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Shamasi, she was saying, my question was for the humans on screen, not to ask ChatGPT. Yeah, no, that's great. Cool. Let's see. What is the best operating system, and how can ChatGPT reduce disinformation within society? That's a fantastic question. Let's go do that one. So let me close this out. Let me push this panel back down. Drag all this back over. How can ChatGPT reduce disinformation within society? This would be an interesting one to look at for sure. Let me go to the console. Let me clear this out so we can see those sentences come through. All right, doing our text analysis. ChatGPT can help reduce disinformation within society by providing accurate, reliable, and fact-checked information. Can be used to provide users with accurate information. We see Jan's, thing changing. Overall, came back with a positive response. By providing users with reliable and accurate information, it can help reduce the spread of false information. I mean, it depends where it's getting that information from in the first place. If it's finding an inaccurate source, is it actually alleviating false information? Additionally, ChatGPT can be used to detect and flag potential disinformation quickly. Okay, cool. Well, came back with an overall positive response for that. Let's see what else. What else can we ask this? We got several minutes left here, so if folks in chat want to pass along
Can you,
a question. Go ahead, yeah.
Ian, could you do what's the news of the day and then see if it lists like the news and we see if it is a good or a bad day?
Ooh, interesting. How would we ask ChatGPT? Like, what are
What's
the
the top
top
5 news of the day?
what are the top 5 news headlines for the day? Should we say world news?
Yeah, maybe. If that's
Okay.
not asked too much.
Well, let's see what this comes back with. I mean, I've got a feeling the way that most news outlets kind of do their thing, I think we're going to see a lot of negative output here, but we'll see overall what we come back with. We'll check out the console here.
The first no is up. That's undecided.
Oh,
Mixed.
got a neutral.
No, undecided,
mixed.
undecided.
Okay, and one positive one.
Oh, another positive.
Another positive overall. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, let's see what
That's
it
a
came
It's a
back
good
with.
day.
China orders closure of U.S. consulate. Okay. U.S. to impose new sanctions on Russia. The World Health Organization warns of worst case scenario. Well, this is all sounding pretty bleak. EU and UK reach agreement on post-Brexit trade
Armin
deal.
is
Okay.
making a good point. ChatGPT shouldn't know the news of the day. It's not training on recent data.
Yeah, if I remember right, ChatGPT is using data from like 2021. I think was the last thing I saw. Saswat, maybe you know a little bit better on like how it actually trains on things.
It has a corpus which is pretty old. I don't think they crawl it every day. I think they crawl it once in a while. I think they crawled
Okay.
it last year over the last year sometime over the news, but I have to check. I have to do my fact checking here. I'm
Okay.
also not sure exactly when they crawled it, but it's
Yeah.
not recent. It's old.
Handful of folks in chat are saying chat or GPT-3 is based on June 2021. Also, really good questions from Isaac from our student group asking about education and will it be useful for teachers. Let's see. Will ChatGPT be useful for teachers? Will ChatGPT be useful for teachers? Well, let's keep an eye on Jan's light panel here. It would be really cool to.
Oh,
It ended
Okay.
neutral overall, but wow, we got some pretty strong negative impressions here.
The so-so is not neutral, Ian. So-so is
Oh, is that?
mixed, like
Oh, it's mixed.
both
Okay.
extremes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Good to know. It can help teachers create engaging conversations. It says yes, ChatGPT can be useful for teachers, but it came up with a negative screen.
Interesting. Maybe you
Yeah,
should
it can
still
be used.
output the sentiment in words here.
Yeah, let's do that too.
Do another log.
So with the log, so we'll drag another select block here. Oops.
Mhm.
And we'll pick, that's going to be the overall sentiment for that block. And then we
There's another
will,
block if you want to format the screen, which is called the template block, which could convert both of these values into a nice concatenated string, or you could just log them twice.
oh, you know what? That might be a better thing because of the way that these are printing in the console.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no, because we're doing it after the delay, and so they'll both
Yeah.
be printing together.
Together,
So
yeah.
I think it'll be
It
okay
should be
to kind of see. Robots took my jobs.
So
How Google and other tools are different from ChatGPT. Sorry, go ahead, Jan.
yeah, I was just wondering. I have during the request, I'm also outputting to the console, and we could read that in flows as well, right? So I'm outputting the sentiment value as well, and
Okay.
that would be probably somewhere hidden in that flows also.
Okay. So we had some neutrals come in. I did see a positive one flash by early on. So we got neutral, neutral, neutral. And then if we open up the very last one that got sent, we have the response body. Well, it just came back status okay. Request body, this should tell us.
It's not in there. It's in
Oh, it's
the,
not
in
in
the
the request
console.
body?
It's not. No, it's not in the response.
So we're in the console here. What should
We
I
can
be
just
looking for in the console?
we can just hover over the port, and we should be able to see what the last value was that got sent to the request.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
I'm wondering if the sentiment gets assigned to the right value, because it seems that there is empty output in our console. If you open up once again, Ian,
Yeah.
there's these little average signs, which is a empty console log.
Interesting. Okay.
I think my request doesn't get the correct sentiment transmitted. So maybe let's try to put that variable thing in the current value as well, not only in the initial.
Okay. So what should I change? What should I be looking for here?
Go over to my collection.
Okay.
The blinking lights.
Yep.
No, we assigned it in blinking lights in the collection itself, not in the request.
Oh, yep. Okay.
Variables. And we have the sentiment only in the initial value, not in the current value.
Oh, okay.
Try to put it in the current value, please. Because I had that error before when we just started and I demoed, and it didn't read like the initial value, although the current value was empty.
Gotcha. Okay.
So let's try it again.
Okay. I'll run this one more time. I'll clear out the console.
If the console now outputs the log.
That could be why we weren't seeing yeah, there we go. Now we're seeing neutral. No, it's actually, it's literally sending the string sentiment.
Now it's sentiment. Okay.
We can try something. We can just empty the entire environment and just empty the entire variable variable and just use that instead. Let's just see if that works out.
And let me, for debugging purposes, remove the randomizer in the code, because that is not helpful at the moment.
Yeah,
Okay,
variable.
so while
We
Jan's
just
doing
clear
that,
everything off. Yeah.
I'm going to take this out as a variable here. And so now on the
We should
request
save it.
itself. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So now on the post request in the body.
Let's go
Oh,
to
the-
pre-request script, and here within this pre-request script, wherever we are extracting that sentiment value, where could be
Yeah, it's getting the
Yes.
variable here.
Yeah, let's do the curly braces sentiment here. Let's do the curly braces. Yeah. And-
Okay, well let me just copy this line and I'll just comment this one out.
Yeah.
So we just want to set a string with
Yeah.
that value.
Yep.
So we'll just call it sentiment again.
Yeah, that should be it.
Okay. So I've saved that work. So if I come back over to flows, let's go back over there. Collapse this down. Now, do I need to change anything in here, or is it still using?
It should work. It should just work. Yeah. Even if we refresh, it should just work.
So if I refresh, it's only looking for the request body now.
Its sentiment went to the top, so maybe we just disconnect that line, and I think there's some
And
minor
reconnect
bug.
it?
Yeah, reconnect it to the sentiment on the top, the first one.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, yep, you're right. Yep.
The order got changed somehow.
Oh,
Yeah, nasty little bugs.
there you go.
Yeah.
All right, and then should do the same on this other block over here. So we'll refresh that. Sentiment got moved.
There's
So we'll
that's
delete.
now a selector on the request body that wasn't there before for the first request. Is that a problem, Saswat?
There's a little bit of difference in how these variables are handled. I think they are getting they're becoming weird somehow. We'll have to check exactly what went wrong.
So we have another visual bug happening here. If I try to
Reload.
drag from sentiment, it's actually dragging down from request body.
I think
So-
we need a page refresh, I guess.
Okay. All right. Let me
Just,
refresh.
This is a restart for us.
All right, let me zoom out here a little bit, and then we'll connect these again. There we go. Oops. Go to sentiment. There we go. All right, let's try this one more time. Any other questions from chat that we want to ask? Sounds like Isaac is really hopeful on saving teachers. So, how can ChatGPT save teachers' jobs? Let's see what this has to say. So we'll pull up our console here. Can help teachers save time and energy, allows teachers to focus on personalized instruction. So we're seeing a lot of sort of randomness from the LED mural there.
Still,
Yeah.
having-
Oh, it still looks like it's still
It's still
sending the
interpreting.
actual string of sentiment. Yeah.
yeah. We'll have to
So it
figure
doesn't like
out.
that in our pre-request script, I think. All right, so let's close that down. Let's go back to our collection. And back at our pre-request script. So it doesn't like sentiment in double quotes like this.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out how to bypass this.
Okay.
This is an interesting problem.
Yep.
What's the normal thing, Ian? If I access PM collection variables get sentiment, would it look for the current value? And if the current
so-
value is empty, then the initial one, or how would I persist that? Or
That's a
reset.
good question. Typically, well, current value is going to override initial value. And so if there's nothing set in there, I think it's going to literally set nothing. So I think you pretty much always want to set current value. You don't have to have an initial value.
Okay. So
The initial
do you want to
anything you
try?
store anything you
Yeah.
store in initial value will get synchronized to the Postman cloud. Anything you put in current value is only stored within your environment, like your own local storage.
Yeah. So do you want to try to only have the current value and not the initial value and see what happens?
Okay. Yep. Let's try that. So if we clear that out completely here, so I'm gonna have to go back and let me save that. Then I'm gonna have to go back into the flows and like reconnect those things, I think.
I have made a small change here. Let's see if this works. So
Okay.
if you go to the request, right? If you go to the pre-request script, I think this will give our users a little bit insight into how it works.
Okay.
The same section. If you go to pre-request script, yes, instead of doing collection variables.get, I'm just doing pm.iteration data.get. So flows is putting data into the iteration data. So when we were doing collection variable.get, it was not able to figure it out. So
Okay.
right now I have set it to the environment. I have also set it to the iteration data, and hopefully this should work. We can try this.
Okay.
This should work. Let's try.
So this is specific to flows, the iteration data, or would it still work when run individually, that request?
Sorry.
Would
The
that
the iteration data, is that specific to flows?
It's how flows is able to put variables onto the request. So there are different scopes, right? Collection scope, environment scope. Iteration data scope is where flows is making its data available.
Yeah. But to run that request now individually, you would need to make a, I don't know, if else logic in there.
I think the most easiest would be the variables. I just pm.variables would be the ideal one which resolves everything. I think we can even try that. That would probably look at all the different scopes and choose the one which is the lowest. But I'm not exactly sure if it will work, but I'm pretty sure iteration data should work out.
Let's try it.
Yeah, let's try it. What's the worst that'll happen? It won't work.
Yep.
All right, so we'll run this again. We'll see if we can send these over to the lights. Yep, that actually sent over those strings. So we're seeing a lot of neutrals coming back here. The very last one sent nothing at all.
Yeah, I think I by mistake removed it. Let me go ahead and fix that.
There was a positive in the beginning. Do we find that in the log?
Yep,
Oh, yeah.
there was a positive one in the beginning.
Okay.
Yep. All right.
Nice. We fixed that live. I wasn't confident. Confidence score was low with Jan.
Cool, but it looks like that final sentiment maybe didn't go through. All right, let's take one more from chat because we're running out of time here. So if anybody else has one last thing, does ChatGPT get smarter over time like Google does? That'd be a good one. I don't know the answer to that, but let's see if ChatGPT knows itself. Will ChatGPT get more intelligent over time? All right, let's see what this says. So we go in, we cleared out our console here. Neutral.
Oh, that was a quick one. It's already finished.
It says, yes, ChatGPT is designed to learn from conversations and get smarter over time.
And that's neutral?
Apparently, according to Microsoft Azure. Now we're making the AIs fight each other over over these things. So is Microsoft's AI like detecting that what ChatGPT came from an API from an AI? It's all very curious things for sure. Cool. Well, we're pretty much out of time here. But thank you, Jan and Saswat. Thank you so much for hanging out today. It was really great seeing kind of the new stuff in Flows. There's so much more cool stuff in Flows. Let me drop this link as well, because Saswat, your team has been building out this thing called FQL, Do you want to give us like a 30-second pitch on what FQL is all about?
Yeah, so FQL is a query language that we have been building in Flows right now. So if you imagine all of this complicated logic that you might want to write, you want to filter data from a list, you want to map some data onto another kind of data, you want to do substring, you want to do trimming of strings. All of these operations that you usually do with different data types, they're really hard. So we're trying to build a query language which is type compatible with the type system that you saw in Flows. So we are trying to build that kind of a query language, and it's called FQL, Flows Query Language. And it's available inside the evaluate block right now. So if you place an evaluate block in your flow, it gives you an input to enter the Flows query language, and you can use it to do all of the evaluation operation, data transformations of sorts.
Gotcha.
We have been working on it consistently for almost a few months now. It's in a good place, so we would want everyone to try it out and give us more feedback as to what more functions and features they would want in that block, and we will continue uh, making it better.
Awesome. Cool. Well, we do like to close out our stream with any community shoutouts. So do Jan or Saswat, either of you have any kind of like shout out that you want to give to any particular team or group or any kind of websites? We like to make sure that that you've got opportunity for that.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Jan.
Jan, you can go.
In my role as open source program office lead, I just want to spread some love with folks that are engaging actively in open source. If you're not doing today, please contribute to a project of your choice. Ideally, something API related, but that's really up to you. It pays back. It's so amazing to join these communities. So go ahead, and
Awesome.
I love all those open source communities out there.
Awesome. Cool. Sashwat, any shout outs?
Yeah. So not shout out, but like our Flows team is consistently working on this problem space, and we have been behind a wait list right now. So Flows is not really available to everyone at this point because we have a lot of users, and it would be very hard for us to cater to everyone at once. So we are slowly releasing Flows to GA over a wait list. I would want everyone who is interested in Flows to join the waitlist. I'll put the link to the waitlist here. I'll just share it with Ian. And yeah, you should try it out, Flows, and give us a lot of feedback so that we can continue improving these things.
Awesome.
Shout out wise, it would be the Flows team. I think they're amazing. They do a really, really great job, and I have
For
I'm
sure.
really
For
glad
sure.
I get to work with such talented folks.
Yeah, even to go back and look at how we built it to what you've got now, like so much you've done. It's been really, really incredible for sure. I'm going to drop a link to our intergalactic. We've got an intergalactic session coming up pretty soon, so you can go register for those. Those are free, and so drop that in chat here as well. And then, Sashwat, did you have a link that you wanted to share for the sign up?
One
And we'll
second.
drop that in chat. So if you're a current Postman user and you want to get into using flows, as Sashwat was saying, there's a sign up process, and so you'll be able to sign up. So we'll get that link in chat here shortly, and then there it is, and you'll be able to sign up for that. I'll drop that in chat, and then we will wrap up for the day. So thanks again, everybody. Appreciate Jan and all the engineering work that you put into building out the light panel and all those little programmable screens and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun just seeing it rotate through, randomly picking like positives and negatives and so on. And Sashwat, thank you for your help with ChatGPT and walking us through flows again today. It was really fantastic. So thanks, everyone. We'll catch everybody on the live stream next week. And have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for having us. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.